At midnight, 6 men in bright yellow vests stormed up my gravel driveway and surrounded my wrought iron gate. One of them barked, cut it open, and before I could react, a crewman snapped the heavy padlock off with bolt cutters. The lead truck bore only the letters HOA in bold red, as if that shorthand granted them carte blanche. I stood frozen on the sun-bleached porch of my rustic barn-style house, every board and nail the product of my own sweat. At the edge of the steps, Karen planted herself with hands on her hips, sunglasses perched atop her head like a badge of authority. Clutching a clipboard as though it were scripture, she shouted, "Get off this property right now or I'll call HOA security." Her voice echoed off the surrounding hills, underscoring the absurdity of her command. Behind Karen, 2 other HOA minions lingered near a golf cart, shuffling uneasily. Karen, however, advanced another step and jabbed a manicured finger toward my freshly painted barn. "This land fails to meet community standards," she cried. "Either vacate immediately or we'll escalate enforcement, and you'll owe thousands in fines." A distant rev of engines cut through her tirade, but in that moment, Karen's defiant posture, the broken lock at my feet, and my own disbelief, I realized this wasn't a disagreement over paint or fences. It was a hostile takeover of my home, and I had no intention of complying. Just as Karen's tirade peaked, I heard a low rumble of tires on gravel. 3 black SUVs emerged from the tree-lined drive, their engines idling like beasts at rest. Karen spun, eyes narrowing, as the first vehicle stopped 20 feet from the porch. Its tinted windows reflected the afternoon sun, then the front passenger door opened quietly. A tall man in a tailored black suit stepped out, earpiece glinting in his ear. His expression was stone-cold professionalism. Behind him, 2 more agents, 1 man, 1 woman, exited the other SUVs, badges discreetly gleaming beneath their jackets. Karen's jaw dropped, the 2 HOA bystanders behind her fumbled and fell silent. The lead agent removed his sunglasses slowly and cleared his throat. His voice carried the calm authority of someone used to command. "Ms. Walters, are these individuals harassing you again?" Karen's shriek caught in her throat. She opened her mouth, then shut it. The agent continued, addressing me now, "Sir, we have orders to investigate unauthorized HOA enforcement actions on private land. You have federal protection under an active inquiry." I offered a slight nod and pointed at Karen. The agent turned back to her. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "I suggest you step away from the property." Karen's face crumpled in panic. This is a setup," she stammered. 2 more agents emerged from the rear of the 3rd SUV, flashing badges stamped with the Department of Homeland Security seal. The courtyard fell into stunned silence. I crossed my arms, Buck leaning at my side. Karen backed up the porch steps, muttering something about fake agents and community safety. The lead agent stepped forward. "Ms. Walters, any further enforcement here will constitute obstruction of a federal investigation," he warned. Karen spun and fled the steps, tearing down the drive as if pursued by devils. The other HOA members scurried onto their golf cart and raced away. The agents watched them go, then formed a loose semicircle around me. The female agent, her badge reading Agent Ruiz, offered a curt nod, "Mr. Caldwell, if they return, call us immediately. We'll coordinate with local law enforcement." I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Buck exhaled a soft woof. The agents gathered my homeowner's deed, HOA violation notices, and Karen's bolt cutter lock fragments. They photographed everything, giving me their cards. As they slid back into the SUVs and melted down the drive, I stood on the porch, stunned. Where the forest met the sky, Karen's pastel blouse faded into the distance, but the threat remained. Now, at least, I wasn't alone. 3 months earlier, I was Ethan Caldwell, a security systems trainer for federal agents in Washington, D.C., teaching surveillance tactics and threat assessments at the academy. Day in, day out, I lived among concrete, cameras, and the hum of government bureaucracy. My heart pounded with adrenaline, not peace. Then came the call. My beloved uncle had passed, leaving me Redwood Ranch, 150 acres of rolling foothills just outside Red Ridge, Wyoming. He'd been a lone wolf himself, barbed wire fences, a weathered red barn, and a giant oak at the land's center. When I first set foot on the property, I felt a quiet I hadn't known in years. The wind in the pines, the creak of old boards, and the distant call of hawks replaced sirens and chatter. I sold everything in D.C. My condo, my car, my security clearance perks. I swapped tie-dye shirts for flannel, fiber optic cables for fence posts. My first week was spent patching holes in the barn roof, repelling obsolete wiring and rusted nails. Then I painted the barn a deep navy, an homage to the night skies I once surveyed from a rooftop, and named my black Labrador, Buck, a guard dog and confidant who chased coyotes by dusk. By month's end, the greenhouse stood on salvaged windows, the solar array hummed on its pilings, and goats roamed the pastures. Each new structure reflected both sweat and hope, a concrete water trough sunk by hand, a wood-fired stove installed on a stone hearth, a potting bench carved from reclaimed oak. My anxiety receded with each sunrise over the eastern ridge. Neighbors trickled in, retired ranchers and timber workers, offering tools, advice, and friendship. I learned to drive a tractor, mend a fence post with baling wire, and brace a window against winter's gale. I reveled in the simple tasks, milking goats, herding chickens, pruning fruit trees. No HOA, no traffic lights, no permit applications. Just me, Buck, and the vast Wyoming sky. But paradise has its price. The Red Ridge HOA, for miles away, began sending brightly colored flyers. Unapproved fencing. Incorrect barn color. Late dues. I laughed at first. My property lay well outside their covenants, but the letters became demands, the demands became threats. My dream land turned into a legal battleground. That realization came the day Karen bolted my gate lock. The day I understood, Redwood Ranch was more than acreage. It was my new front line. On my first night back at the ranch, Buck snoozed in front of the wood stove while I unpacked tools in the work shed. The peace was startling, isolated, beautiful, complete. I found a stack of mail on the porch, white envelope stamped HOA enforcement, in scarlet. Inside were color-printed flyers and legalese disclaimers. They now govern properties west of Highway 89, including Redwood Ranch. I checked my deed, it listed no HOA covenants. I drove to the county clerk's office the next day. The clerk's eyes widened as I presented my deed, no amendment, no map change, and no signed waiver. That evening, Dale Thompson, an elderly surveyor down the road, drove up in his pickup. He spread a faded HOA map on the hood and pointed to a yellow line that now encircled my land. "Board vote last night," he said quietly. "You should have seen the notices, buried in their newsletter." I felt my chest tighten. "They never mailed me anything," I said. Dale nodded. "Defaulted on process. But they're bold." With the borrowed map, I confronted Karen via certified letter, cessation of unauthorized jurisdiction over Redwood Ranch, I wrote, enclosing my deed. A week passed. No reply. Instead, I found more flyers under my barn door, fines of $500 per day for noncompliance. 2 weeks later, Karen and her entourage appeared in person. She strutted up the driveway in pastel pink, sunglasses perched like a crown. The two minions behind her hovered near a golf cart, scanning the fence line. "Mr. Caldwell," Karen said, clipboard at the ready. "Your barn color violates community standards. Repaint within 48 hours. I gestured at the deep navy paint. "This barn is not in your district." She flipped through her binder. "Our maps say otherwise." The board extended its boundaries, legally. "By mail?" I asked. "Where's the certified notice?" "My records show proper notice," she insisted. I stepped forward, voice firm. "No county record, no approval, this is trespass. I tapped my deed, then my county ordinance printout. These govern. Not your newsletter. Her lips tightened. Will enforce by lien if necessary. She and her crew stomped back to the golf cart as I watched from the porch. My mind raced, they had no authority, but they were testing me. That night, I upgraded security cameras, infrared models pointed at the driveway, the barn, and the gate. I posted a sign, notice of legal ownership, no HOA jurisdiction. Behind the ranch house, I found a newly dug hole and survey stakes marked HOA line. Their workers had come at dusk. I reached out to Marcus, my former trainee friend who'd served with the Secret Service. He flew in the following weekend. We combed the property for evidence, floppy notebooks of HOA meeting minutes, boundary markers with no county stamps, and a camouflaged golf cart parked near the horse pens. With Marcus's help, I drafted an injunction request and filed it with the county court, a motion to block any HOA enforcement until a hearing. Karen, I knew, would respond with more threats. Sure enough, the day after filing, I discovered my fence boards loosened, goats spooked by unknown footsteps, and fresh tire tracks near the greenhouse. Someone cranked the solar panels out of alignment. That night, Buck and I sat on the porch under a sky ablaze with stars. I lit a lantern and called my uncle's old friend, Sheriff Boyd, describing the trespass and boundary tampering. He promised extra patrols and advised I document everything, every shred of proof that HOA was acting unlawfully. 3 days later, the court granted a temporary restraining order against the HOA. I posted it at my gate, alongside an official notice, Stop all HOA activity, Court Order 24CV089. At dawn, I watched the sunrise paint the pastures gold. The restraining order bought breathing room, but the underlying battle remained. The HOA's next move would test not only my resolve but the strength of the law itself. Emboldened by the court's ruling, I expected calm. Instead, Karen's minions escalated tactics. One morning, I found a shovel-dug trench 50 feet inside my boundary, stakes marking, community land. Nearby, someone had hung a sign, Red Ridge HOA Community Parkland. I called Marcus, who arrived with his field ops kit, radios, drones, and a portable server. We set drones to circle over the fence line, mapping every stake and hole. I planted my own survey flags in the correct locations, pairing them with GPS waypoints recorded on my phone. That afternoon, Marcus captured video of 2 HOA workers returning under cover of dusk. The drones tracked them as they hammered stakes and slipped back into shadows. Marcus downloaded the footage as evidence. Karen increased her pressure. She sent a team to my gate bearing yellow violation notices, unapproved sign posted, $200 fine. Another demanded Buck be muzzled during patrols. A different crew erected a demolition pending flyer on the barn door. None cited legal authority. My response was methodical. I logged each notice, photographed the signage, then drafted rebuttals citing county statutes. I built a binder, Exhibit A, HOA violation notices, and delivered it to Sheriff Boyd with a signed affidavit. Meanwhile, Marcus and I installed discrete trail cameras behind the barn, on the south pasture, and near the pond. We triggered motion sensors to record anyone crossing those lines after dark. I also re-established the No HOA Jurisdiction sign, enlarging its font and backing it with stormproof plywood. One afternoon, Karen herself reappeared, flanked by 2 board members. She videotaped me with her phone, threatening legal action. I will escalate to the Court of Appeals. I handed her a copy of the restraining order and county injunction. She tossed it on the ground. Fake law, she sneered. My board has authority. I pocketed my phone and said quietly, your authority ends where my deed begins. That week, we broadened our intelligence gathering. Marcus tapped into publicly available HOA financials, revealing large fees collected from phantom properties, and subpoenaed their treasurer's ledger. We discovered suspicious payments to Karen's personal account. Landscaping services for non-existent community areas. At night, Buck and I patrolled the fence line, flashlight in hand, while Marcus monitored the drone feed on a rugged tablet. Every new incursion, every silent shovel scrape, every hush-hush boundary marker was captured, catalogued, and backed up in triplicate. One evening, Marcus and I reviewed the drone footage with Sheriff Boyd and County Attorney Jenkins. The attorney rose, eyes gleaming. "This is substantial. We'll amend our injunction to include digital trespass and financial misconduct. I'll file motions tomorrow." Over cold coffee on the porch, I realized the battle had shifted from property lines to evidence. The HOA's bullying tactics, violation flyers, fake signs, clandestine boundary surveys, had built a mountain of proof. They didn't realize each act fed the legal fire we'd ignite. By the weekend, all local news outlets had snippets: rancher versus HOA, court issues new order. My community space. Once a quiet barn loft, buzzed with volunteers ready to help rebuild fences, restore solar arrays, and host educational sessions on landowner rights. Still, I knew the most dangerous weapon the HOA wielded was intimidation. But now I had my own arsenal: drones aloft, cameras hidden, county attorneys on my side, and the unwavering loyalty of Buck at my heels. A week after halting Karen's minions, Buck's growl jolted me awake at 2:13 a.m. I grabbed my flashlight and descended the barn steps to the back pasture. In the beam's glare lay a dented canister leaking viscous fluid onto the dirt, an industrial-strength pesticide known to be both toxic and highly flammable. My pulse raced. I radioed Marcus, who raced in from the farmhouse with gloves and evidence kit. We documented the scene: the canister's label, fluid drips, and nearby scorch marks where a discarded cigarette could have ignited the barn. The breach occurred mere feet from Buck's kennel. I dialed 911. Deputies and the fire marshal arrived within 20 minutes. The marshal confirmed the pesticide's flammability and the deputy took my statement. "This looks like an attempted arson," he said gravely. I handed over the canister, sealed in an evidence bag, and photos of the leak. Instead of relief, dread settled in. This was no random vandalism. It was a calculated attack on my home and on Buck. I reviewed the motion sensor camera footage: two masked figures moving in and out of the frame, working swiftly under cover of darkness, then slipping away. The timestamp read 2:07 a.m. That same night, Marcus and I reinforced the barn's side entrance with steel-barred doors, installed motion-activated floodlights, and reconfigured cameras to record in infrared. We also added silent alarms wired directly to the sheriff's dispatch. By dawn, I drafted an expanded trespass and arson complaint with my attorney. The new filing included the pesticide canister evidence, camera timestamps, and the deputy's affidavit. I served it to the HOA's legal department, though I suspected Karen would never acknowledge it. That morning, I found a spray-painted message on the fence: "Next time, we burn the dog." My blood ran cold. Buck whimpered beside me as I snapped a photo. I realized the stakes had shifted. This was personal. Later, Sheriff Boyd personally delivered the news. The investigation was upgraded to a federal case under environmental and anti-terror statutes. He handed me a card: "Call me if you see or hear anything tonight." As he left, Buck licked my knee, eyes bright despite the danger. I patted his head. "We'll keep you safe," I vowed. Under the crescent moon, I locked the barn door, closed the gate, and traced my finger over my deed, my only true protection. 2 nights after installing upgraded security, I awoke to the distant drone of a trailer reversing behind the barn. Peering through my bedroom window, I saw 3 masked figures loading my goats and chickens onto the back. My heart thundered. Grabbing my rifle and radio, I crept down the stairs and out the back door. Buck bounded beside me. Buck's low bark spurred the thieves into a hurried escape. 2 jumped into a covered livestock trailer, while the 3rd bolted across the pasture. I sprinted after the fleeing man, floodlight in hand, but he vanished into the tree line. I returned to the barn, staring at empty pens where my animals once slept. On the ground, fresh tire tracks led down the service road. Frantically, I checked the cameras. The night vision footage revealed all: a black pickup towing a gray trailer, tinted windows, a driver's arm bearing a small snake and mailbox tattoo on his forearm, the unofficial logo of the Red Ridge HOA. My blood froze. They'd used HOA aircraft to survey the pens beforehand. This was no random rustler. I recorded the time-stamped clip and sent it to Marcus, who confirmed the tattoo-matched images from the HOA board member roster. He also cross-checked the truck's license plate, a rental plate traced to a local farm equipment company that confirmed the renter was Ethan Walters, Karen's nephew. The sheriff's deputies arrived within the hour. I pointed out the tattoo and provided the video. The lead deputy nodded, dispatching units to intercept likely exit routes. Meanwhile, I logged the theft with the state's livestock department, initiating an alert for stolen animals. By dawn, one goat and several hens were recovered in a nearby field, abandoned when the thieves realized law enforcement was on their tail. The remaining animals were returned in a battered trailer. Buck greeted them with relief-filled sniffs. The theft report and tattoo evidence elevated the investigation. The district attorney's office issued warrants for conspiracy to commit theft and intimidation. Marcus and I spent the day canvassing neighbors. Many had recorded suspicious vehicles at odd hours but were too afraid to come forward, until now. That evening, I patched the goat pen, counted every chicken, and hugged Buck. "They think they can scare us," I said softly, "but we're just getting started." Determined to catch the remaining conspirators in the act, I announced a weekend ranch gathering on the local bulletin board: free barbecue dinner under the stars at Redwood Ranch. The notice, framed within county-approved signage, specified times and protocols for a private event on private land. Karen, ever vigilant, couldn't resist. 2 nights before the dinner, she taped a violation notice to my mailbox: unauthorized assembly, $1,000 fine. I chuckled and slotted it into the evidence binder. On the evening of the dinner, dozens of neighbors arrived, ranchers, retirees, and families, drawn by curiosity and support. Long tables groaned under brisket, baked beans, and lemonade. Marcus manned the cameras, hidden in tree branches. Buck patrolled the perimeter, tail wagging. Shortly before midnight, a black SUV crept down the driveway toward the barn. 2 masked figures slipped out, moving toward the unlocked side gate. Unaware of the surveillance, they approached the barn's east door. Marcus gave me a thumbs up on the monitor. I slipped away from the feast and signaled Sheriff Boyd, who had quietly stationed deputies nearby. I approached the gate with calm authority and called out, "Hands where I can see them." The intruders froze. Flashing LEDs snapped on as deputies surrounded them. The duo dropped metal tools, crowbars and bolt cutters, onto the dirt. One of them lunged for the gate latch. A deputy tackled him, while the other was secured by another officer. Under bright floodlights, we removed their masks. One was an HOA board member's nephew, the other a local maintenance worker hired by Karen. The shock on their faces was palpable. They believed they were operating with impunity. As the deputies read them their rights, I returned to the dinner under a sky full of stars. The crowd cheered, raising plastic cups in solidarity. I climbed onto a picnic table and addressed them. "You stood by while they harassed me. You came out tonight to show this land matters to all of us. This community gathering just exposed the final piece of their illegal scheme. Thank you." Neighbors patted my back and passed around blankets. Buck settled at my feet, resting his head on my boot. The sense of unity was unmistakable. Redwood Ranch was more than my refuge, it had become a beacon for landowners' rights. The night after the dinner, Marcus and I sifted through seized HOA records stored at the sheriff's office. Among them lay a draft sales contract on Red Ridge HOA letterhead, listing Greenwood Properties LLC as buyer, offering $6 million for Redwood Ranch. The signature line bore my name, scrawled in imperfect cursive. I felt sick. They intended to sell my ranch, land they didn't own, to a foreign investor before I could stop them. Marcus snapped photos as I submitted an amended complaint for federal forgery and fraud. The contract's forged notarization and my signature spelled conspiracy. The sheriff's office called. They'd traced communications between Karen and her nephew discussing expediting the sale. Simultaneously, Lana Ruiz, our investigative journalist, confirmed the story ran on every major local news outlet by morning. She filmed my statement, they removed my livestock, threatened arson, planted sabotage devices, and even tried to forge a deed. But they underestimated this community, and they overestimated their own power. Within 24 hours, social media erupted, HOA tries to sell ranchers' land. National watchdog sites picked up the tale of vigilante enforcement. Memes dubbed Karen the Covenanter. Public pressure forced county supervisors to freeze the fake deed transfer. Under this glare, Karen's narrative collapsed. She held a press conference, tears in her voice, but viewers sensed her desperation. Lana cut the clip, "Why did you forge your own neighbor's signature?" The question hung unanswered. By dusk, Cedar Grove HOA's board president quietly resigned, and the association announced its dissolution. The forged contract was invalidated, Greenwood Properties LLC withdrew its offer. My ranch remained mine. With the forged contract and records of illegal enforcement now public, prosecutors moved swiftly. Karen was indicted on multiple federal charges: conspiracy, forgery, fraud, and intimidation. Her nephew and 2 HOA associates faced related counts. The fallout spurred legislative action. The state assembly proposed a bill requiring explicit landowner consent before any HOA boundary expansion. Maria Ramirez, my attorney, testified before the committee. Her opening line, "An HOA cannot annex through terror," became a rallying cry. Meanwhile, I restored the greenhouse panels and restocked my livestock. Neighbors volunteered time and materials. Sheriff Boyd led a community watch patrol. Marcus returned to D.C. But his partnership endured through remote advising for other landowners facing similar harassment. One evening, months later, I found a single typed note on my porch: "You may have won the skirmish, but beware the next battle." No signature, no logo, just a reminder that vigilance is eternal. I placed it in my evidence binder, then looked out over Redwood Ranch's quiet fields. Buck yawned at my feet. I patted his head. "Let them come with steel and fear," I murmured. "But this land stands on truth." Under a vast Wyoming sky, I closed the barn door, knowing that property rights, like freedom, must be guarded every day. 2 days after the forged contract scandal broke, federal agents executed search warrants at Karen's home just before dawn. Unmarked SUVs surrounded her white crossover as she stepped onto the porch in a pastel robe, teacup in hand. Behind her, the skinny HOA board member Gregory, still reeling from his conscience, slipped away quietly. Karen Walters, Agent Ruiz announced, badge in hand, "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and intimidation." Karen's teacup shattered at her feet, porcelain shards scattering across her deck. She opened her mouth to protest, but the agents cuffed her before she could speak. Meanwhile, at Redwood Ranch, Ethan stood with Buck on the porch as Marcus relayed the news via secure radio. A dozen neighbors quietly gathered under the oak tree, watching the agents lead Karen away. Bucket's solar lights cast long shadows across the lawn, silent witnesses to the end of her reign. Within hours, the remaining HOA board convened an emergency session. Embarrassed and exposed, Susan and Grant, Karen's trusted lieutenants, voted unanimously to dissolve the HOA. Their final communiqué declared, effective immediately, Cedar Grove HOA disbands. All covenants, fines, and enforcement measures are hereby rescinded. We apologize for our actions and urge members to seek legal counsel for any lingering claims. News crews swarmed Redwood Ranch, and Lana Ruiz's report ran nationally that evening: rogue HOA president arrested, Wyoming rancher vindicated. Social media lit up with messages of support. Landowners from coast to coast celebrated Ethan's victory. At the courthouse steps, Sheriff Boyd delivered a brief statement. Today, justice was served for property rights and due process. No one, HOA or otherwise, is above the law. Ethan, flanked by Marcus and Maria Ramirez, nodded solemnly. Buck, wearing a fresh red bandana, stood alert at his side. That night, Ethan walked the perimeter fence under a full moon, checking each post and canister. Though Karen and her HOA enablers were behind bars or disbanded, the scars remained: dented gates, missing livestock, and shattered trust. But as he patted Buck's head, he felt a profound sense of closure mixed with resolve. The battle had ended, yet the duty to safeguard Redwood Ranch would endure every dawn. In the months following the HOA's collapse, Redwood Ranch blossomed back to life. Neighbors pitched in to rebuild the greenhouse, replace stolen fencing, and restock livestock. Sheriff Boyd established a rotating patrol schedule, and Maria Ramirez helped draft state legislation requiring explicit owner consent before any HOA boundary expansion. Ethan formalized Land First, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting private landowners from fraud and unauthorized annexation. Marcus, back from D.C., volunteered to lead security systems workshops, while Lana Ruiz's documentary on the Redwood Ranch saga inspired dozens to resist similar overreach. Under the giant oak, Ethan installed a plaque reading, "Here, home means freedom, protected by law." Community potlucks resumed each full moon, with Buck as the unofficial mascot, trotting among neighbors and children. One crisp evening, Ethan found an unsigned envelope in his mailbox. Inside, a single line read, "Congratulations. But the next season will test you still." He tucked the note into his evidence binder alongside Karen's resignation letter. Then he lit a lantern and stepped onto the porch, Buck at his heels. The wind stirred the tall grasses like a silent pledge, reminding him that vigilance never sleeps. As the lantern's glow faded into night, Ethan whispered, "Redwood Ranch is safe, for now. And we'll be ready." Buck nestled beside him, and together they watched the stars, guardians of a land that had won its battles, and was poised to defend its peace forever.